Beauty, once again, seems to be a universal for humans, and it's one of those things that I firmly believe is almost a vehicle. It's one of those things that we've sort of been endowed with by the entity who set all this into motion to even be able to recognize and appreciate it on the level that we can. There's visual beauty, aesthetic beauty, auditory beauty, beauty and taste, beauty and smell. And we seem to go through life consciously and unconsciously trying to bring as much beauty to us as possible. It seems that the great bulk of our existence can be characterized by the effort in bringing as much beauty to us as we can. And as far as ugliness is concerned, it seems to be the ever encroaching force that our efforts to bring beauty quells. Because it's not very often you see or hear somebody say that they not only invite but seek ugliness. And there are some things that appear as just objectively and universally beautiful. Personally, when I walk out my front door, I'm the sort who overwhelmingly sees a sort of standard beauty in the world, with just blips of maybe something you could call ugliness from time to time. Whereas I would say for some it is certainly the case that there is ugliness that is the overwhelming norm with blips of beauty. But it's not often again that you would hear somebody say that's an ugly sunset or an ugly moon or things of the sort when it comes to the natural world. The natural world seems to harbor just an incredible beauty. And that is perpetually available. That's always available. But there are so many forms, one of which is typified by a story. There's beautiful jump shots. There's ugly jump shots. There's beautiful throws, beautiful catches, beautiful games. And those games are often, as I was saying, typified by a story. When a team wins the Super Bowl, it's made even more beautiful not just by the victory and how the game was played, but the games prior. The exchanges with the players. The trades. What the coach has said. What they've all been through. And when it comes to people, it is definitely true that we like the people who bring us beauty. And I don't know if we really put it that way. I don't really think I've heard people put it that way, but it definitely seems the case that we just have people who bring us beauty and people who don't, and people who bring us what we could call ugliness. And it seems with our homes, our jobs, everything that we really engage in, we arrange it as beautifully as we can, as defined by what we consider beautiful. It would be a highly uncommon thing to have a home that we intentionally made ugly, unless it was for some specific fluke, I guess you could say, of a reason. And we might say, this is a beautiful home you have here. And the person will feel, oh yes, it is. but auditory beauty even. To know the story of the one who is making the auditory beauty makes it a little more beautiful. And we do remove ugliness. We wear beauty. We like to act beautiful. We like to bring beauty, unless, again, as if for some reason we're intentionally not doing that. But it's overwhelmingly the case. We like what we do, what we animate, what we exude as a person to be perceived as beautiful. Of course. But humans, for me, there is so much beauty everywhere all the time. But as I've said before, the most beautiful thing that I've seen, that I know, is a person, a woman. And her beauty isn't something that I uphold within myself just to uphold it. It's something that I simply can't help but appreciate. And I want that in my life as much as I can have it. And such a thing is made even more beautiful, hypothetically, let's say. The most beautiful woman you've ever seen, the most beautiful woman you know, also thinks you're something special. Well, that makes it even more beautiful. Because it's a strange thing with a beautiful person like that. It's when you meet them, you feel this sense that you've known them before, or you've known them for longer than you do. There's this resonance that seems to almost set a bar, that suddenly makes this person's existence itself something you highly appreciate. Just the fact of their existence is something you're very happy about. And it's more than aesthetic beauty. It's, I guess you could say, on the level of the soul. And imagine making more people with such a person. I mean, really, it seems that's what we're doing here, aren't we? It seems anything less just wouldn't quite work. And for such a person, I can't help but be an overwhelming source of beauty. And even in moments where something happens that you could call less than beautiful in the grand scheme, even that becomes beautiful as, again, typified by a story and a larger story. Because, especially from the male point of view, you would do anything for that person. You would find another gear, so to speak. And it makes you say beautiful things and do beautiful things. And when such a person is such a source of beauty for you, it seems you have this energy that you just don't have for anybody else. And it's quite something. It's almost like it sort of comes alive. And through history, men have written many great things, great songs, great poetry, and done some pretty great things for women who they've discovered to be beautiful in this way. And I totally understand that, It's like that cliche, suddenly all those things make sense. And if you, for whatever reason, don't have access to that beauty, you'll miss it. It's the sort of person you will genuinely miss, and you'll think about them. And in the end, you'll hope they're well. And it's the sort of thing you think to yourself, well, surely everybody sees that. Well, maybe not. But for you personally, it's just so clear. And the chemistry between people, I've talked a lot about this. the chemistry between each individual is different. We all have our base, we all have our core, but the outer levels and the degree to which we breach into each other in terms of our deeper elements rests very much on the level of beauty that we bring to each other. And we are very much like chemicals in that we do change. We become each other, and we become more of each other when we're beautiful to each other. And this isn't some sort of, gushing, idealistic, overtly optimistic interpretation. This seems to be how it goes. And when we feel an ugly transformation in us as a result of that chemistry, we tend to recoil and want that to not be around. Because there are, of course, bad chemical reactions. Things that we could classify as bad or acidic. And sometimes beauty is not just aesthetics or auditory or just of the senses. Sometimes beauty is going from not understanding to understanding. And in those situations, we might say, "Now I see," or something like, "I was blind, but now I see." Because understanding in and of itself almost brings out an inevitable beauty. And there are people all over the world, all through time, who have spent years and years studying something that they were so fascinated in. And to them, it's the most beautiful thing that they can conceive because they understand it so well. Some people we understand so well that there's a sort of beauty there. And the degree to which this is the case is extreme. And there's also beauty in just the execution of a plan. And overall, I don't think that we could even go on if beauty wasn't the overwhelming operating situation in life. And I think things have gone seriously awry when, for whatever reason, ugliness has taken hold. And it's, I think, difficult to get out of. I think it has a momentum like all other things. And from what I've seen, there are many people who tend to interpret the ugly thing where there is also beauty present. Because very, very often, in any given thing, both are present at any given time. And the variables that bring one to conclude or see or experience one or the other are so vast that it takes sitting down with a professional and discussing any and everything that you can to get to the thing, the pinpoint that may change that. And I've said in videos past, like, you can tell by the way somebody speaks. And vibe is a pretty common word these days. You can tell by the way somebody feels. Whether their overarching view is, I guess you could say, generally pessimistic or optimistic, because those are placeholder words for ugly and beautiful. They're very, very similar in terms of what the person is actually experiencing. And it's as I've said, things start with feeling and then words. Sometimes people say something and only realize after saying it that they feel it, but they felt it all along. Sometimes words have a way of acting like keys, and it's almost like a vast set of keys. And we have a bunch of keys that we don't even know unlock things, put things together, arrange things, shape things, organize things. And sometimes somebody simply saying something unlocks something, puts things together in a way that makes you just feel 15 years of time in a moment. There's been so many times in my life where I've understood something and all of a sudden it just snaps into order, into organization. And it's that sensation of, I guess you'd say, eureka. And you think to yourself, I get it, I see it. And that is a very beautiful feeling. Because it is like in the last video about belief. That zone where things exist as theoretically true, theoretically untrue, theoretically believable or theoretically not believable. That vast space of information where things are not yet believed or yet not believed. When a cluster or a cloud or a large chunk of that can suddenly be organized into a place of truth, you could say, or belief, you could say, or even beauty, you could say. It feels very good to have that happen, and it is a truly beautiful thing. And the more that can happen to you, the more you can understand of this world, the more beautiful your day-to-day experience is going to be. Hypothetically, imagine if you had 100 words to describe the world. Imagine if you were limited to only 100 words to speak on a day-to-day basis, and you understood only 100 words. Imagine all that you would experience that you could not say. And imagine how that would cause a series of bottlenecks. And then imagine one day you have access to 200, 300, 400, and you can finally say it. How those bottlenecks would release and what that would do. How incredible it would be able to finally say it, because that is the almost bridge point, the words. And it's strange how that is, because words are only supposed to be representations of reality, that they're not supposed to be real. And that is technically true. But when it comes to human beings and meaning, there's a whole other layer there. Because we don't have all the words yet. There are always new words that come into being. But we don't have all of the words yet to describe all that there is. And all that there is not only so vast, it's always changing all the time so quickly within that vastness that as soon as we have a word to describe what is, it's a different word from moment to moment. So it's also a matter of efficiency. It's like, I remember when I was younger, I used to have this thing where I wanted to write a book that was only one sentence. And upon reading that sentence, you would somehow understand everything. I don't know why I wanted that, but it seemed, that's just what I wanted, you know. And that is some serious ideal thinking. But there are, we pass these quotes down, There's these little quotations that have gone through time that we still share with each other, because that little set of words, if you haven't heard it before or anything quite like it, does something to you. That little set of words is so valuable that we've been passing it down and sharing it forever. Hundreds of years, thousands sometimes. Because it's like a little key. It's like a little golden silver key that does something for you. that brings you just a little more beauty. And that's why people, well, not everybody, but that's why people read. I mean, there is so much beauty in reading stories, not even just books of information and learning. There's so much to be extracted from stories, a beautiful story. Because even stories that have bad endings have beauty to them. And if you walk out your front door, try to point out the ugly thing, you know. Mountain ranges, tree lines, the way the moon dances off the water, the ripples in the water at night, the sound of the crickets. We have this thing where it's a matter of attention. The more one is fixated on their internal workings at various stages of their life in thought, the less likely one is to see an overwhelming beauty to all that there is. Because human beings are this very special collection point of beauty and ugliness. And it's all too easy to get stuck in a cycle of just thinking about the ugly things of the world, because they will always be there. There will never be a point where beauty gobbles up ugly and ugly gobbles up beauty. They simply will not destroy each other, ever. There will never be a point where there's a society, a people, or anything that exists on Earth that is anything but both. It's a matter of ratio. Like this woman, as far as I go, what I will bring to her, what I have brought to her, is overwhelmingly beautiful because I simply cannot do anything but. And even if it's 99.9% beautiful, there's still a 0.1% that must exist. That will always exist. But with such a thing, even that small percentage, in a strange way, becomes just a part of the beautiful. Because things like flaws that are objectively flaws and things like that aren't interpreted that way. And this is the sort of thing that you can't just transfer from person to person. That's not how it works. It would actually completely lose its meaning if that was the case. And it's like I've said, you can't just choose like that. That's not how it works. You can't simply say, you're the most beautiful human being I've ever seen, and your existence is something I'm extremely glad about, to anybody. You know, you can't just walk up to somebody and say that. And if you do, it's more likely that you're trying to get them to believe that for whatever reason, instead of observing it. But that actually can happen, just out of the blue. But it's such a singular, unlikely thing that it really does make you appreciate their existence. And this is especially from a male point of view, because it's not just aesthetic, as I said. It is on the level of the soul, and that's the sort of thing that really makes you think to yourself, I need to make people with that woman, because, you know, she's beautiful, and we would make beautiful things, we would make all sorts of beauty, just everywhere. And for a man, for humans, beauty is something that has to be upheld in other areas. And relationships that sort of don't do so well are relationships where both parties don't have this almost surplus energy to uphold the beauty. The ugly will encroach too far or find itself in too many things, and the relationship itself will become undone. And it takes a very special circumstance for you to uphold the beauty. And it's not uphold as in a vigilant effort that one must do all the time. I mean uphold as in you simply cannot help it. And it is reflected in the statement, I would do anything for you. I would do what it takes. Not because there is so much to do, but like I said, because you simply can't help it. And it's a very strong thing for a man. For a man who truly loves a woman, it's a very powerful force. And all those things that we idealize about relationships, about men and women, those characteristics, those traits, those hypothetical things you could say, come to fruition within a love, a bind like that. That they can't just happen through sheer force of will for just any two people. They can come into being between two people who have such a strong gravity, such a strong force, whose chemical reactions produce such a beautiful everything that you would do anything for it. And it shows in large ways and small. And, we all have a limited amount of energy, let's say. We all have a point in our day-to-day lives where we encounter people and we just simply don't have the energy to uphold any sort of beauty, where we're a little short, we're a little less charming, maybe we're a little vacant, we don't feel like smiling, we don't feel like being happy, and that's that, don't really think twice about it. But for this person, not even consciously, their existence is such a beautiful thing to you. And their presence, you just have another gear, And that's not to say that you always have to be on. That's to say that even when you're off, even when you're resting, there's a beauty there. You can rest together. That private side of you is even safe. That part of you that is normally for yourself can safely bind, can safely roam around and exist and just be what it is without criticism or judgment or the possibility that you're going to say or do something that makes you feel less than beautiful. And again, that's not an idealistic or naive interpretation. That's simply how it is. And that sort of love is such an uncommon thing. So I would not doubt it if many who hear this have never had a relationship like that. I wouldn't doubt it if many who hear this have not only never had a relationship like that, at the same time would love a relationship like that, who actually know about this possibility, who are aware that this sort of thing does and can exist. But the irony of it is, it's not something that you can search for. And if you do happen to find it while you're searching, that's extremely uncommon. Because people like this have a gravity, have an unseen pull, and you're always slowly coming together whether you know it or not. And you can't keep people like this apart. If you are apart, then you feel like something is horribly wrong. It just feels like, and we kind of undersell this day and age. We like to be independent, which I get. We like to think that we can have the benefits of a true, I guess, love with another person by ourselves, which is just simply not the case. That should be dispelled very quickly. And I totally get why people would want that, because that's akin to beauty completely gobbling up ugliness, or vice versa. That's akin to half the coin somehow existing without the other half. That's the same thing as somehow breathing in and never breathing out, yet somehow managing to breathe. It's the same thing as only having a left hand and somehow managing to do all you can do with a left and a right hand. And I get how we would want that. It would be nice to have just a left hand and still have the abilities of both. It would be nice to not have to exhale. But you would completely miss out on the experience of breathing and all that that offers. And the experience of a left and a right hand and all that that offers. And if you've gone a great deal of time without this sort of beauty, in fact, while hoping maybe for this sort of beauty, and maybe projecting the possibility of this sort of beauty into other people, and hoping that that projection would be something that may cause it. If you've gone a long time without that, and you start to get into your later years, I can understand how you might think that the world is a bit of an ugly place, because that's not going to bring the sort of beauty that you want. And we kind of find this out when we're younger. This is what dating itself is. This is why we date. This is why we mix it up. This is why we get out there. Because we have to find that out. You can't be told that. You have to go out there and let your personality, your soul, your very being mix up with people and find out exactly how it works. And if you are fortunate enough to be somebody who to where this gravity between you and another has finally brought you close enough to where you can make some sort of contact, well, once you see that, you're never going to forget about that person. And the sort of beauty that you can bring into this world with that sort of person is something that I think everybody wants. And if you do find it, you should see it through, I would say.